So I've seen this guy, and he does these fantastic videos, and they're like on creativity and making stuff and being an artist and being an individual and trusting in yourself and stuff like that. But he'll like walk through the streets of London. I don't know, I think it's London. I'll have to double check, but they're shot really well, you know, and he's just always able to convey his ideas really well. We always love the accent, you know. I got to experience it growing up, but it's always nice to hear it. But what he does is like gives people ideas in little packages. And it's like the Willy Wonka of ideas, but instead of chocolate, and you're giving away little sweet treats of knowledge, you know? And like, it's almost like selling like plant seeds, you know, to people. Like, here is this idea, go plant it, and it will become this. But this is like an idea. This could be a business. This could be like a painting. This could be anything that you're trying to do, a project. But it came from you watching that video and you getting that idea to do that thing. And then the like energy that you put into that is the time and effort. Like, those are the minutes and the hours and the blood, sweat, and tears of the work of doing it. Of like, and a lot of it, it's so cyclical in nature, but so is life. So I guess it makes sense. But creativity it is something else. And that's almost what you kind of see being stripped away, is like the creativity. Almost a sense of like restricting. It seems like restriction, right? Because when you talk about creativity, at least I don't like to put boundaries on it, right? Because why are we being creative if we're going to restrict anything? So that's how I would think about it. But I know other people might definitely think about it differently. It's more of like a sandbox idea, you know? Like just being able to do whatever. Creative. Or like Minecraft. But it is a process, right? And maybe that's it, right? I think about it as in like sometimes as I'm growing as a human being, I'll say like the control that I would have over what I would say to people or what I think, right, that I should say. Should be like. Sorry, I got a little bit lost, but we're going to bring it back around. So it becomes almost unaware, right? When you first become aware of actions in yourself, like if you respond to somebody and you're like, ooh, I didn't like that, that's a weird thing in the first place, right? Because you're now, in a kind of way, like judging yourself or judging your actions at least. Which, you know, could be based off how you feel about how the interaction went, or it could be like you get, corrected. And then you get to get that feedback in real time and make that correction. But they'll usually let you know. But you have to be able to see that within yourself. And like when you just exist through your life and keep on living and doing whatever, you're unaware, or maybe you don't care. Or maybe that's what you want because you don't. Right. Because some people get hurt to the point where they just don't want to talk to anybody anymore. Ever. And it's like, yeah, at that point, you really don't care. Which is fine, right? You know? I would want you to be part of the group, you know? I wouldn't want you to be sitting alone at a party by yourself. That's not a fun place to be. Nobody likes to be that person. I mean, so like in kindergarten, right? I was in a certain school district, and then in first grade, I got moved to a different school district. It was the same school district, different elementary school. And I mean, there was a certain point where like I just didn't get along with people, right? You know, and that was just me. I just didn't want to be there, right? I wanted to be back there, but it took time to change. But then you were in, you know, and not to say I was a good child either. I was doing miscreant stuff. But, I don't know. Seems to say. You know the rules. That's what the principals would say. Uh, but all experiences that everybody would have in life. And a lot of it is shared, and much more of it is probably shared than any of us would even think. Or maybe even want to admit. Because I think maybe if we admitted that life was a little more similar for each one of us, then we wouldn't be able to complain. There'd be no more complaining. Or maybe we'd then be able to like actually get over idea or like problems and build things, right? I think there'd be a little more construction. We could find new things to talk about. Approach the ideas. Oh, but to go back to the seeds, right? The seeds of the ideas that he's giving. It's such a beautiful idea. So Jesus gives ideas and parables as stories and mental pictures and things for you to like think about. But he'll like draw you into a scenario, you know, of where you can now place yourself in there and you can become the example of like everything. But it's as far as you take it. Because he gives the parable. And the idea of you get in what you put out of anything, that is true of just life. And I know it's like the mottos of a lot of groups, but it is true. It's true of literally everything, and that's what we were taught as kids, I think. Maybe not in those words. Who knows? Maybe if it was in those words. I think it was more portrayed, or maybe I just took it as like, you're going to do this or you don't get into college. But I never ended up going to college, so it didn't matter. But I guess that was the point of being creative, right? Who knows? I do hope that people, you know, can at least look within themselves. At least start to look within themselves. I know that I'm on a path of God. And it just keeps going. And it's a winding path, right? And you get to look around and you get to see where you were, you know, where you are, where you're going. And you only need to ask for help. And then we're reading today in John. Is it John 13 or 14? At the end of 13 or beginning of 14, Jesus is talking about becoming the door to like the kingdom of heaven. So there's doorways to everything, right? I usually think of like a mental picture of a door in my mind. It's like something that needs to be passed through. And it's always easier to get there by just opening the door. But sometimes the door is locked. And you can't quite open the door. So you try and go around. And maybe the first time in this scenario, they said nobody's ever gone over the door because nobody thought about that. But maybe they forgot. So the second time it happens, right? You have to start banging away at the wall to try and get through. Or you have to just take a minute, maybe ask, knock, right? And you shall receive. But yeah, what I wouldn't give to be walking the streets of London making creative ideas, inspiring the ideas of creativity within others. I painted my first painting the other day, and it was a very freeing experience. Definitely something that I've never done since school. But the way that I used to speak to myself, dude, is ridiculous. I was always pretty good at art. You know, I could never draw human beings, and they always looked weird. You know, maybe because I thought I would draw it wrong, so I just drew a circle. But, I mean, the older I get, the clearer things become. Maybe in my mind, but physically, right? Blurrier. I'm gonna need glasses in a couple years, you know? Something like that. Like, things do fit together. And I think the idea of, like, because you can't go back and tell yourself. So you have to be able to give those ideas to somebody else to be used. Because, like, if it can't be used by you, it doesn't mean you weren't supposed to, like, think of it. You weren't supposed to do anything with it, and maybe you did exactly what you were supposed to, but maybe that idea was for somebody else at a certain time in a certain moment. And that's why, like, talking to people is kind of like, I would say, a magical thing, but it can truly create change in the moment and in the world. Like, you could theoretically have a conversation, right? I work at a retail store, and I can have a conversation with a random customer that flew in from another country just by chance, and they came into my store, and I could have a conversation with them, and then they could go fly back. And because of a conversation I had with them, and maybe we had a good it was a personal conversation, right? And it made them feel good, and they got to talk about family, and it gave them an idea of something to give their family, and it was something that they had to make. So they're now going back to their country to make something for their family or friends, right? And maybe their family or friends really like it, and they post a picture online, and then he starts making them in his free time, and then that's a business now, right? You give somebody an idea just from a conversation, and it's their work, right? And their dedication and everything that they do at the end of the day. But, like, that cultivating is what I'm gonna call it, right? But, like, that conversation is the cultivation of the dirt in your mind to grow those seeds that this man was giving you in the idea. And I'm gonna try and link it, at least, right? At least do the channel names so you can find them. Actually, I'm gonna look it up now, so I'm gonna stop being a lazy individual right now is what I'm gonna say. Johnny Moza. JONNYMOZZA. And he adds, like, filters on the videos too, and they're really good. I'm saying, just to have the conversation is amazing. But they are. Then, at the point that he's doing it, right, and the experience that he has, his process is so refined. And it's like watching a Porsche 911 speed right down through you. Just the sound and the vibrations of that engine. And all the work and effort that went into making it. So, you know, find some peace in knowing that you're probably doing the right thing. It's probably the way it's supposed to be. God has a plan for you, if you allow it. And only if you allow it. Right? Because at the end of the day, you do have free will. And unless God comes down and bends people's free will again, which he tends not to do anymore, I think we should be alright. So, thank you, God. Have a good day.